Welcome back to Her Birth, Her Story, where we share real birth experiences. I'm Brooke, your host, and today's story is one of deep healing and redemption. Our guest, Bree, is a stay-at-home mom of 3. She's going to be sharing her 3 very different, powerful birthing experiences with us. She took her traumatic hospital birth experience, one that left a lasting impact on not only her, but also her husband, and went on to reclaim her power and her intuition through a beautiful, redemptive home birth of her 2nd, and then another redemptive home birth of her 3rd. Her story is just a reminder that birth can look many different ways, and that no matter what you've been through, you are always worthy of autonomy, respect, and choice. And I'm just so honored to share her journey with you today. Hi Bree, thanks for coming on Her Birth, Her Story. I am really excited for you to share all 3 of your birth stories, just because they're very unique and super empowering. And so I'm actually just going to go ahead and we're just going to jump right into your very first birth story.
Yeah, so I grew up around the medical field. My mom is a nurse, my sister is a nurse, my other sister's a respiratory therapist, my husband is a nurse. So I have never been afraid of hospitals or anything like that. I'm just very comfortable. I visited my mom a ton. Grandparents are sick. I was just comfortable. It's not like anything worried me or scared me about going into the hospital for my delivery when I was pregnant. And with my husband being a nurse, he really didn't feel comfortable being anywhere else. We do have a close friend who had a few home births, and while it was a thought in my mind for a very brief moment, and we did tour a birthing center, we just knew that being in the hospital was going to be what was most comfortable for him. And I didn't have a problem with that, so that's what we decided. I did go into it wanting a natural birth and a med-free experience, but I was also pretty naive, I guess. I didn't really prepare or plan, with it being my first time. I was 23, and so I just was kind of going with it. I didn't really think that I needed to have this whole birth plan. That's also not really me. I'm not a super type A kind of person. So I knew I wanted med-free and just an all natural. I was trying not to go with an epidural, but I also knew I've never done this before, so that might happen. Just really didn't know any better, I guess. So I was 38 weeks. And my water had broke without having any contractions, and that was kind of the start of labor. I didn't even have a hospital bag packed. We had just moved a couple days before, so our place was a wreck, and without having any contractions, so I was just kind of hanging out. We were packing a bag, having a good time, and went to the hospital, and my labor didn't really start, didn't progress. I didn't have any contractions for a while, and because my water had already broken, they were kind of putting me on a time limit. Wasn't super rushed or anything at first, but as time went on and not having any kind of progression, they wanted me to do Pitocin. And so got put on Pitocin. Honestly, I don't exactly remember the timeline of when everything happened. I know my water broke around 9:30 p.m. And then labored all night through the morning. With the Pitocin, of course, now my contractions are so strong. They are almost unbearable. And so I got an epidural, which failed the first time, had to get it again. Just not pleasant, but I wouldn't say it was, anything crazy. And then when they checked me and I was, at a 10, and now they're getting ready to help me push, and I pushed for 2 hours.
Wow.
And I mean, all kind of normal things, nothing crazy. And very normal, I would say, up until delivery. And when she came out, she was not breathing. They had to cut the cord immediately. They took her over to the corner. They called a code, which is, for emergency services. most likely like resuscitation services is when they call the code. And so my husband, being a nurse, was freaking out because he is not OB, but he knows what codes are. And, me being on one side of the room and her being on the other, it was just pretty traumatic for him. The only reason that I really remember anything is because we have a video of it. My husband had set up, my camera to record the birth. And so I was just kind of in la la land because I didn't really know what was going on. They didn't really communicate well with us of what was going on either. And so that was kind of hard, especially for my husband, who is in the medical field. So he's like, I know something is wrong. Please just tell me. And so, it happened very quickly where they got her, breathing, and they had to suction a lot of blood out. And they didn't realize until after she was born that I had a placental abruption. And so that was the cause of why she came out not breathing. She had inhaled a lot of blood, could not breathe. Her lungs were filled just with all of that blood. So I thankfully did not hemorrhage. They were able to get my bleeding under control. But I feel like it happened super, super quick. But looking back now, I can kind of piece it together of the fact having Pitocin and rushing things and an epidural, like a placental abruption can be a side effect of all those things. And of course, I will never know if I had, a completely med-free birth, if I would have had that or not.
Yeah.
Because it can happen. But just kind of having all those interventions and then ending up, with that happening, going into our second birth is kind of when we were like, I don't think we really want to put ourselves in that situation again. And so, she was fine, like perfectly healthy. We didn't have any kind of NICU stay, which was amazing. Wow. I was good. Everything was good. But it really was like those, 10, 15 minutes of not sure what was happening, what was going on. Pretty scary, moments. For that. But it's kind of a little recap. She was born exactly 24 hours later. So she was born at 9:35 p.m., which is kind of the time limit that they gave us in the hospital. Was your water broke, you have about 24 hours before we'll have to start thinking about C-section. And that was not what I wanted at all. So I was like, whatever you need to do to get this baby out, that's fine with me, kind of thing at the time.
You had planned for, this birth to be unmedicated. What did you envision going into this birth versus what actually happened?
Yeah, I didn't really want to set myself up for failure, so I didn't want to think too much about it, of exactly how I wanted it to go, because I just didn't want to be disappointed. And I've kind of walked through each of my births that same way. I don't like to envision specifically exactly how I want it to go, because I just know myself, and if I had set expectations that weren't met, that I was going to be upset that it didn't play out the way that I wanted. Really, the only thing that I had in my mind was that I was trying not to get an epidural. That was it. And so, through labor, realizing that that wasn't going to happen, that wasn't the plan, I honestly accepted it pretty early on, because I didn't have such hard expectations of exactly how it was going to be. So in the delivery room, I was fine. When I decided to get an epidural, I was fine with it. I was that's just what it's going to be, and that's how, I really wasn't upset at myself or disappointed even after the fact. So no, that's awesome. And looking back now, what do you feel was missing the most during your first birth? Do you feel like it was education or just not knowing what you don't know? Yeah, for sure. It was definitely just the education part of it. Just not doing enough research, not planning ahead of time, even going into the hospital, planning, or even just researching these things of if I get Pitocin, what could happen, or I just didn't know. I didn't really know anything about anything. And so, with an epidural, I didn't know that I was going to need a catheter, and I wouldn't be able to change positions at all. I just didn't know any of this stuff. And I wish going into it that I would have just done the work and spent the time instead of, worrying about clothes and, other things that
Yeah.
that in the grand scheme like really don't matter.
Yeah.
So that I think would be the only thing that I would like change about the whole
Yeah.
situation.
No, for sure. How did your experience impact you, like emotionally or physically postpartum? Because obviously that's traumatic. So I'm sure your postpartum wasn't just physically tough, but also emotionally. And how'd you just overcome that?
Honestly, I just kind of blocked it all out. I didn't really process anything. Postpartum was hard physically, just in general, but I really was not attributing anything to the birth itself. It was just more of like what I should have been doing, resting. I was
Yep.
not doing. So like physically it was really hard. I had to do like physical therapy for a couple months afterwards, just healing wise. But as far as like emotionally, I didn't process anything. I didn't really want to face anything. I couldn't really watch the video at all of anything that went down. Like I just kind of blocked it out, shut it down. Everything was good. My baby was healthy. I was healthy. I didn't really want to go into all of that and unpack all of that was there. And my husband, who honestly dealt with it a lot worse because he, I don't know, he was just watching everything unfold, couldn't do anything about it. He felt so helpless. Not sure whether he should be by my side or by her side.
Yeah.
And we just kind of both didn't talk about it, didn't really do anything about it until we got pregnant again. And that's when we had to really work through everything.
Yeah. So then what led you to start questioning like your birth and questioning things and just exploring other birthing options?
When I got pregnant again, we had a really great friend who had 5 kids at home with the same midwifery team. And she just really helped kind of talk through what it could look like, not being in the hospital. Because at that time, when I got pregnant again, my husband and I didn't even really need to have like a sit down conversation. It was kind of just understood, like, we don't want that to happen again. So let's try something different.
Yes.
And so we had looked into birthing centers, and when we realized that insurance wasn't going to cover it, it was going to be more expensive than birthing at home. So it kind of just was, both of us just kind of agreed that because it was going to be more expensive, like why wouldn't we do it at home? Why would we travel now? We were living a little farther from the birthing center. It was going to be like an hour drive, and we didn't really want to do any of that. We decided that we would just try to do it at home. And when we sat down with our midwives, we had 2 of them, and we sat down and just talked through a lot of trauma. That's really when it just all started coming out with, our first experience, and just sitting with them and them just listening and just kind of confirming, like, even if that were to happen again, even if I were to have another placental abruption at home, that they know how to manage that and know how to help if that were to happen. I think that was like one of our biggest fears, that they knew what to do. That just kind of, for us, we didn't even really have to think about it. We went across the street to sit at a coffee shop and just talk about it for a minute. And both of us were like, I don't really think there's any other option here. Like, this is what we feel comfortable with, especially for him. He felt so much peace walking out of that meeting with them, and just feeling so much peace and just the Lord over everything. And especially because they were believers too, and just having them by our side, like having them walk through this next pregnancy with us, we just felt so much peace about it and so much comfort. And so we took, I think, like 5 or 10 minutes to talk about it, like across the street, and then we walked right back to their office, and we're like, so we're good, sounds great, and we would love to have you. And I would love to say that like that was it, like processing everything from our first birth, but it was not. It took,
Gotcha.
the whole pregnancy to really work through those fears. But they were very helpful in all of that. They truly walked us through a lot. And so I'm just really grateful for them and walking into that space.
That's kind of the reoccurring theme that I've been hearing too, with just like the home birth midwifery team just being way more like personable, treating you as an individual, but really focusing not always so much on like the medical or the physical side, but just really being there spiritually, emotionally. And it just feels a lot more supportive. Now we might as well lead into your second birth, which I'm really excited about because it's a very unique place too, I feel like, to have a baby, especially for a home birth. So go ahead and start us with your second.
So we were living in an RV, and we had actually moved into our RV like 5 days before our first was born. We decided that we were going to do that. My husband being a nurse, we wanted to do travel nursing, and that was like the dream. So we decided to get a jump on it, and thankfully, that kind of paved the way into me being a stay-at-home mom because we didn't have a mortgage, we had no bills, we paid cash for our RV. I was able to stay home as a mom. And so going into our second birth, it was either like a birthing center or it was my parents' house, which they were about an hour away. Or it was our RV, and we decided like this is home for us. And so we decided that we were just gonna have our baby in our RV.
That's awesome.
And I mean, for us, it really was home. We had lived in there for a couple years at that point. So even though the space was really small, we felt so comfortable. And that was, the space that really felt the most comforting for us, being able to relax and not in labor having to get up and go somewhere else, whether that would be, because even they brought up the option of having like an Airbnb, but it's just not home. So we did decide to do that. I was 39 weeks exactly when, again, my water broke with no contractions, which for me kind of worried me a little bit because I didn't want the same things to happen. I didn't want to risk having to now go to the hospital because labor wasn't progressing or anything. And my midwives just really, I think, prepared me ahead of time that like there were things that we can try or things that we can do without, having to just jump the gun on going to the hospital. I think my water broke around 2:00. Thankfully, it was only an hour before contractions started. That was different from my last, I didn't have contractions for hours. So once my contractions started, I just kind of rested and knew that like this was like I was going to be okay. We were going to be okay. We were going to have a baby here. And so it happened really quickly. So at 3:00 in the morning, my contractions started. By like 7:30, I think, my midwife team had arrived. I was already like throwing up, kind of that transition period. It was honestly just like a whirlwind. I don't really remember too much besides like writing in my notes of like when things were happening. She was born at 10:30 that morning, and honestly, easy delivery. I actually experienced FER, the fetal ejection reflex, and that was crazy. That was probably like the most wild experience I've ever experienced in my body. Of just her literally pushing herself out. I had no control. I had nothing to do with it. Truly, she and my body knew exactly how to give birth. There was no like needing to coach or teach or tell my body what it needed to do. Like it just happened. And so I only pushed literally for just like a couple of minutes because she was ready to come out.
Yeah.
And she actually had a velamentous cord insertion, which is kind of where like the cord, instead of being like attached to the placenta, it's kind of attached to like the membranes. And kind of exposed, so it can categorize you as like a high risk pregnancy. Usually they would see that in the ultrasound, like in the anatomy ultrasound, which I did have.
Yeah. But
nobody ever caught it. And I'm honestly really, really thankful because that could have, I'm not really sure. I never asked my midwives if like that would have prevented me from having a home birth. Because it can cause bleeding, like premature bleeding, if anything, like pushing too hard or anything were to happen, because those vessels are exposed, they can rupture, they can, cause bleeding
Wow.
before baby's ready to come out. So none of that happened, thankfully. And, she was perfectly fine. So I'm just so thankful that we never even knew about it.
Yeah.
Because that just would have caused so much unnecessary worry and stress when everything turned out perfectly fine. So yeah, but I mean, the birth itself was just so easy, so smooth, so quick, and we didn't even have time to set up the birth pool. I had my birth affirmation cards all hung up in my living room space, and I had a space where the pool was going to be set up. And because we were in an RV and we don't have much hot water, we had to turn it on and off and on and off. And it was never even set up or ready for me anyways. So I didn't even walk out into the living room. I labored in my bed the whole time, had her there. So yeah, it felt so quick compared to, my first labor.
Yeah, no, that is insane, especially the fetal ejection reflex. That is absolutely insane. I hope that every mom gets the chance to experience that at least one time, because I really do feel like that too just helps with a little bit smoother of the transition and pushing experience, because you don't have to count down, you don't have to force yourself to push a baby out. Your body, it's just uncontrollable. I know that you were probably walking into this second birth with a little bit more fear that you had to overcome. So how are you able to combat that fear from your previous trauma of your first birth?
Yeah, I mean, it took my entire pregnancy to really, I would say that I really put the work into reading books and honestly being in the Word more, praying more, surrendering more, because I was just holding on to so much. I mean, your body remembers that kind of trauma, and I just really had to spend that time, the whole pregnancy, just constantly surrendering my feelings, my worries, my anxieties. I would say that the Christian hypnobirthing app was probably one of the biggest things that helped me. I would listen to that. In the Christian hypnobirthing app, they have, the different tracks and the one with the verses, and it just would speak scripture, and I would listen to that over and over and over again every single day, falling asleep in the car, washing dishes, whatever it was. And so in my labor, I turned it on for a brief while, but then I really wanted to listen to worship music. And even listening to worship music, I was repeating those verses over and over in my head, and really surrendering to the Lord and giving it up, and knowing that I can do this. My body was designed, the Lord designed me to do this, and just reminding myself that was truly what got me through everything. And I know it was just so quick, but I think even just getting over those fears in pregnancy. And so, yeah, just reading books, listening to podcasts, doing the research on how was my body created? Why do these things happen? Why? I just had so many questions. And so, yeah, I really felt like I spent that whole pregnancy just doing the work that I needed to do mentally. I needed to do so much work mentally, taking care of my body, feeding myself the right things, just things that I didn't do the first time around, because I don't know, I just was naive. So yeah, I just think that doing all those things helped me to kind of cross over from having that anxiety over my birth to this is great. I feel peace in what I'm doing, in labor. And I didn't feel any of those anxieties or anything, because I feel like I really got over those during pregnancy.
Oh, how did it feel to labor and then birth in a space that you intentionally chose?
I mean, because I didn't even get to go into my space. I guess, what I was considering my labor space was my living room with the lights and the, everything. And I didn't even get to be there. And so more so than having a specific physical space, I really was able to go into that space with God. I feel regardless of where anyone delivers, just having that peace about where you are and what's happening. I feel for me, was more important than like the actual place I was. Because my bedroom was not the place that I thought I was going to have the baby. I mean, even though like I was home
Yeah.
and that just felt comfortable, and like not having to physically get into the car and go somewhere else, like that was just so nice. But just kind of, you know, surrendering that too, and like not having like a water birth that, you know, I was kind of picturing. Again, like I said, I was trying not to have like these big expectations of how or what it was going to look like. But, you know, in the back of my mind, I was like, it would be nice to have this really pretty in the tub with my lights and whatever. But still, like, not even doing that, feeling so much peace around just my team, being there, just being in the space that I wanted to be, you know, at home with my husband, like, just how everything played out was just still so perfect anyways. So
Yeah. So then would you say that peace is like something that your environment that you chose could offer you that maybe the hospital couldn't for yourself?
for sure, yeah, I definitely think that. I feel like with just birth in general, that's kind of just how I would describe having babies at home is just so much more peace. There is not these bright lights if you don't want them. There is no music, or there's music, or there's, you know, a diffuser, or there's not. Like, you can control the space how you want it to be. And so the way that I felt peace was with my worship music on, was with the lights off, you know, was with a quiet environment. And I was able to get that with being at home versus being in the hospital and having, you know, the lights on and you hear the monitors going off, and then your team comes in and the door slamming and you're hearing people outside, and it's just it felt chaotic. And so just being able to create that space how I wanted it to be, for sure, brought just a level of comfort and peace that I feel like is unmatched anywhere else.
Yeah, no, for sure. And what would you say surprised you the most about yourself during this birth?
I guess just that FER, like, just never have experienced that. I'm not even sure if I knew about it beforehand. I knew that it was a thing, but my midwives were like, it's okay, like, you're gonna, like, this is normal. So I was kind of freaking out, like, what is going on? And I would say that just kind of surprised me in how, like, looking back, like I said, there is nothing that I need to, like, do, you know? My body knows what it's doing, and it knew exactly when and how, and I didn't need to coach myself. Nobody in the room needed to coach me and time me and even check me. I mean, I was checked once, but there was not like oh, you're pushing, like, let's just make sure you're at a 10, you know, you're at a 10, and let's just make sure, like, there was none of that. Like, that just really surprised me the most, of just how normal it is. There is just nothing that needs to happen. Like, it's just normal. Giving birth is a normal part of life.
Yeah, no, that's a good word right there, because God does not make mistakes in designing how women grow a baby, how women can labor through and withstand certain pain thresholds, and then birth and take care of a baby. Like, that's my biggest thing, is like, God didn't make a mistake with giving us a motherly intuition. It is something that is very maternal, instinctual, and like, we were designed to do this. And so I just love that you said that it's normal. Birth is a normal part of life. It is not something that has to be medicalized if you don't want it to be. I'm very passionate about that. But
Yes.
so let's go ahead, and I'm really excited to hear this most recent birth. So go ahead, and if you need to set it up for us anyway, go ahead, and can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. So we moved out of our RV. We had traveled a little bit, ended up in Tennessee, and loved the area, loved our church, loved our friends that we were making. And so I told my husband, if we're going to decide to stay here, I want out of this RV. We had already been in there for 4 years. I was done. And so we decided to get a house. I knew that I did not want to have any more kids in the RV. We were already tight as it was, the 4 of us, plus we have 2 big dogs, and I just needed some space. So when we moved into the house, that just kind of gave us a sense of, whenever we decide we're going to have another baby, that, we were comfortable with where we were at. So yeah, I got pregnant in, I think I tested positive, February of 2025. And that was going to put us at another October due date, 2 years from when my second daughter was born. Found out we were having our first boy, which was just complete disbelief, honestly, the whole entire pregnancy until he came out. And I even asked my husband, like, are you sure it's a boy? Because I was not convinced the whole time. We were struggling with finding somebody, like finding a team, finding somebody here, because now we were not in the same place. I would have loved to hire the same team that I had, but I can't. And who are we going to choose? It was really hard. There are I feel like a lot of midwives in the area, but I had actually, during that time when we decided we were going to stay here, I was transitioning my photography business from weddings into births, because after having my second, just fell in love with physiological birth and pairing that with my love for photography. So I had already been to a few births with a few other midwives, and I just, for one reason or another, just chose that I didn't really want that particular person or that particular team. So now I'm pregnant and I don't really know. I have heard stories from trusted friends about certain people. I just was so unsure about what to do or who to choose. I knew that I wanted somebody who loved the Lord. That was like one of the biggest requirements for, like, Cole and I were both adamant about, like, that is one of the things. And he said, I don't care who you choose, that is totally up to you. That's my only requirement. So we had hired somebody, and about maybe a month later, she told us that she was actually pregnant and due, within a few weeks of us. So, no fault of her own at all. But we were so sad because now it's like back to the drawing board again of who are we going to choose. And I think I was like 22 or 24 weeks pregnant when we finally hired our midwife. Wow. And she is actually like two and a half hours away, something like that. So it was definitely like a little bit of a leap of faith for us. Not having somebody super local. And my last birth was pretty quick. I mean, not like, it wasn't like a precipitous labor or birth, but it did happen pretty quick. And, we don't know third time around if it would happen even quicker. Yeah. So when I talked to her over the phone for the first time, I did just feel, again, that piece of like just her presence, like just her voice over the phone was just so calming. Just so reassuring. She was so thorough with everything. Just like a lovely human being. And so we're like, I know she's a little bit far, but like, we got this. We had even talked about free birthing for a time because we couldn't find anybody. So, for us, it was like, well, like if she doesn't make it, like at least she'll be here, relatively quickly after anyways. Like we were kind of already toying with the idea of not having anybody here to begin with. So I think for us though, with my husband being a nurse, I really wanted him to be in dad mode. I did not want him to be in a like feeling like he had to be a provider, like I'm his patient. So we really did want somebody to be there, and she was amazing. She did come to see us a couple times. We did most of our appointments virtually, which at this point, this is my third baby. I kind of know what to expect. I was totally fine with like being more hands off. That's kind of what I wanted anyway. I wanted somebody who was okay with being more hands off. But when we did talk, she was just so thorough about every concern, every symptom that I was feeling of like, I know this is temporary, but like still, how can we manage it and help? And she was just amazing. So going into this third birth, I honestly felt like I said, I did the work the second time around. I was feeling good. I was like, this is going to be great. This is going to be good. I knew that like, of course there are complications that can arise and things that can happen. But like for me, deep down, I just knew that everything was going to be fine and it was going to be easy and quick and a breeze. Like I had not a single worry in the world. When my birth team would ask me or my husband would ask me about like, how are you feeling? I'm like, I'm great about birth. Like pregnancy was rough. This was the worst pregnancy. I dealt with so much and it was miserable. But with birth, I was like, that's going to be a piece of cake kind of thing in my mind. I just knew that it was going to be great. I went to bed late that night, and I think it was like midnight, and I went to the bathroom, and there was like a little bit of pink in my underwear, and I'm like, wait, this is new. Like that, for me, my water breaking is a sign of labor. I've never dealt with like any of that, like, guesswork of like, oh, am I in labor? Am I not? Is this bloody show? Is this my mucus plug? Like, I don't know what any of that looks like or what any of that is, So there's like the faintest bit of pink, and I was like thinking in my head, I'm 37 weeks. I'm like, this can't be. Like, this is not happening right now. I was 4 days away from my mom coming. She was supposed to come, and that was kind of like the goal, was to get to that date that my mom was coming so that she can be here to help. She can be here for the birth. She can just give me some time to rest and relax because she can help with the kids, and I can clean a little bit. I can organize. I can do all these things on my to-do list before baby comes. And so I'm like, this can't happen right now. Like, we're just a couple days too early. And so I laid in bed, and I was kind of tossing and turning, and Cole was like, are you okay? And I just like spilled. I'm like, I am just feeling so anxious right now. I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to do. And he told me to text my doula and my birth photographer and, just kind of tell them, just to tell them. So it helped, just like sending a text, even though they were sleeping and they didn't even see it. Just like getting it off my chest was nice. Yeah. And then at 4 a.m, I woke up to a pop. And I knew before I even got up, like, my water just broke. And I got up, and then it all came out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And I was not worried that contractions weren't going to start. I knew that they were going to come. So I called everybody. I was like, my water broke. My midwife, my doula, my birth photographer, my mom. I'm like, Mom, she's in Florida. She's like 9 hours away. I was like, you better get in the car right now and get over here because this baby is coming, and he's coming soon. And so with my midwife being like two hours away, she was, saying, well, your water broke. Like, this could be a long time, like labor, it could be 2 days from now, when baby comes, like, and I was like, okay, but like, I don't know about that. But I know she was so far, so I waited until I had my first contraction, which was like 45 minutes later, and then I called her back. I'm like, you better get over here because I don't know how long this is going to take, but it felt very fast, from water breaking to now first contraction. My contractions were picking up very quickly. At around 6:30, my doula and my birth photographer arrived. My husband was like setting up my birth pool and everything. That's when I started getting out of bed, and happened very quickly. He was born at 8:30. So really, like, between those 2 hours, the 6:30 when I got out of bed, 8:30, that was kind of like my labor progression.
Wow.
So it was very quick again, but honestly, it felt like I keep using the word peaceful, but truly, like, it was kind of like that dream birth that I had envisioned even the second time that I wanted, I had set up my birth affirmations, the lights, the candles, the birth pool, like everything was just so beautiful and perfect. It was pretty, standard. I was in the tub in the pool for maybe like 45 minutes, had that same exact FER that I felt, and he came 3 minutes later. My husband caught him. And like within 2 hours later, everybody was gone and we were tucked into bed, and it was just beautiful, like just a beautiful experience, and I wish I could relive it, even though not the pain, but it was just like such a beautiful morning, like as the sun was coming up through the window, and just like laboring in the pool with, worship music and getting it on camera too, which is something I didn't get to do the second time around at home, on video and with a birth photographer and all that kind of stuff. So it really was like my dream, like beautiful, perfect, everything was perfect birth. So
what do you feel like the biggest difference between having like a land birth, which that's why I like to call them land birth, or like a water birth?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just helped with contractions, just helped like ease the pain, because that happened with me the second time too. They were trying to set up the pool, but didn't happen. My husband felt that like pressure of like, I got to get this thing up and going right now. So he set it up early, like while I was still in bed. After my first contraction, he's like, all right, I'm getting up, I'm setting everything up, which I was just so thankful that, he knew what to do and everything that needed to happen. My midwife did not arrive until 7:30. She was only there from 7:30 to 8:30 before he was born. So everything was done. I felt like with my second, it did happen fast. And honestly, his birth was faster than my second one anyways, but it just felt like it just kind of slowed things down. It didn't really like slow my labor, obviously, but it just in my head, it just brought me like down a little bit, and just, I guess, just the water, the therapeutic like tendency of water, of just the warm water, just kind of like slowed down time. And that was really nice too. And I didn't tear. I tore with both of my girls and did not tear. And I think a part of that too was also water. And just being able to, even after he was born, rest in the nice warm water, like that was nice too. Not rushing to get up or be cold. Like I was just nice and comfy and warm. And I would definitely recommend, I mean, I wouldn't say that's the best way to give birth, but I really loved it and I enjoyed that.
By the time that you approached your third birth, how did your mindset kind of shift, or what kind of things did you have to do differently to prepare, since you're in a new place, you're going through all of these struggles to find somebody to come to you for this? How'd that kind of shift for you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't really have any kind of worry or anxiety about birth. I think that I had even put in my notes of like the vision that I had, of kind of how I wanted it all to play out. And there was not really a midwife in there because I didn't know, but I always knew that like it was going to play out perfect anyways, regardless of whoever it was or if there was nobody there. But I think too, like the thing that really helped me were like my team. Regardless of having a midwife, I had a doula and I had a birth photographer who are really close friends of mine, and that kind of helped, I guess, like bring that space together for me. Like when I envisioned it, it was going to be perfect because like this is who I was going to have around me. And regardless of whoever I hired with a midwife, like it didn't matter because I knew I had those people. And so, yeah, I think just moving to a new place, like that is kind of scary of like, we don't have family here. We knew nobody moving here for the first time. And so creating that community was like not easy, but having those friendships and those connections just kind of helped.
And you had mentioned how amazing your support system was during this third birth. How did it change from your first to your second to your third for that support system?
Having my first in the hospital 2021, like kind of coming down off COVID regulation. When we got pregnant, they said we were only going to be allowed one visitor, so that was obviously my husband. They had changed it before, but we had already decided that that's how it was going to be. It's just going to be my husband and I. So honestly, like being in the hospital, I had never met any of the nurses before. The OB who I had seen the last 8 months of pregnancy, she wasn't there. She wasn't on call that day, so there was not a single person other than my husband that I had ever met before that day.
Wow.
So going into my second birth with my second daughter, because we were in the RV, tight space, I just had my husband, but having my midwifery team there was all I needed really, because they had walked me through everything up until then. Knowing that they were the ones that were going to be there was so important. But then now going into this third birth, being in a house, having the space, I was like, whoever wants to come, you guys can come. Like, just that kind of feeling, like, I know this is going to be great. So that's like inviting my mom. I'm very close to my mom, but she had never been a part of either of, been in the room for either of my girls being born. And so I really wanted her there, and she missed it by just a few hours, but still, I think having her support even like beforehand, just like expressing things that I wanted, or I don't know, I just felt like she was still part of that whole process, like beforehand of, walking through what I wanted in my birth space. And so for her, wanting her to be there, but then I also had my doula, Alexis, and my friend, Piper, who's a photographer, and I had actually been to both of their births earlier in the year. They both had babies this year, so I did photography for both of them. And so kind of like having it full circle of them being now at my birth.
Yeah.
And serving me, just like truly being friends more than like coming as like a job. And that, like walking through the whole pregnancy, like anytime I was feeling any kind of way, like texting them of like, can you either pray for me, or like, this is what I'm feeling, or what do you think about this? Or, you know, they were like cheering me on when I was interviewing midwives and trying to figure it out, and, you know, always asking me like, how did it go with this person, and what are you feeling today? And so just that constant support is honestly like, it doesn't matter if they are a doula or not, if they are certified in anything. Just having like a woman walk beside you through pregnancy and birth, like I couldn't recommend it enough. Even if it's not a doula, even if it's a sister, even if it's a mom, a best friend, like it doesn't matter. Just having that support, because obviously my husband, you know, is that number one support person. And I knew that I would not, I mean, for any of the births, I did not want him to leave my side. I was gripping his hand like, I don't want you to get up. You can't pee, you can't drink water, you can't eat, you can't do anything. You have to sit here and hold my hand the whole time. And so having those women around in the birth space was so important, because they were doing all that stuff. And especially having now 2 kids, my mom was going to be here to kind of help with the kids mostly. And so now she's not here. So now I was a little worried about them. So having them, both of them, you know, my doula and my birth photographer, just kind of helping getting them snacks, helping getting food, you know, taking them away if they needed diaper change, whatever it was, like not having my husband being pulled in all these different directions, where he could just kind of sit with me and be with me, and that was his sole focus the whole time. Getting me water, them getting me a honey stick if I needed, or cutting up fruit or whatever. Like they were truly just like the hands and feet of the day, you know, just serving my husband and I and my kids in whatever needed to happen. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know if I could do it without somebody else now. Again, you know, like looking back, I'm like, how did we do it in the hospital 24 hours on our own? Like looking back, it just felt so lonely, you know, not having anybody, not knowing anybody. And so just having like my friends just there to love on us and support us just means everything. Like,
yeah, that is so powerful. Shout out to your friends for just being those people for you too, because I totally agree. I think that there's just so much power in when we all can come together and you just have those people that help you feel peace, because your labor is going to go so much more smooth, because that oxytocin is just constantly flowing, because one, you feel loved because people are serving you, but also so much peace, and you just feel so good because now you can focus on bringing your baby earthside. And I also kind of want to get into the support of your husband, and you know, maybe how that changed from the first to your last, and some key things that he did for you to support you.
Honestly, holding my hand. Like that is honestly all I ever wanted. I guess walking away from the hospital and then going into a home birth, like just having him completely like trust my intuition, my ability to birth was just the biggest thing. Like him just not feeling like he had to do anything, you know, was kind of just that, the biggest support that I could have asked for. Him even saying like, I don't care who you hire, like I trust you if you want to hire somebody. And him even, you know, when we were talking about free birthing, like I trust you that, you know, whatever you want to do, I trust your body, I trust your intuition. And just having somebody like that, especially with him being a nurse, just like giving up that control of like that he's seen so many different medical emergencies. I mean, he worked in the ICU where like the worst of the worst, you know, people who are dying, and him just saying like, I trust you and I trust God that he has designed your body the way that it needs to be, and he is in control no matter what. And honestly, like that, I could not have asked for more. I mean, him just getting up early and setting everything up, and you know, we had talked, and I had like written everything down for my team of kind of how I wanted everything to look, or where I wanted things to be, like where I wanted the birth pool, and just like silly things like that. But like he was just on it. He pulled up those notes, and while I was in bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, he's just setting everything up.
That is so awesome. We love a supportive husband, for sure.
Yes.
Because really, I mean, we can't get through birth without a support system. From any of our moms who are listening, how can they advocate for this kind of support, or the support that they truly need through their birth?
I think the biggest thing is just autonomy over yourself and taking ownership over your decisions, because it doesn't matter where you birth, where you are, who you're with. Like, you have to be responsible for what you choose, whether you choose to be in the hospital or you choose to be at home. There are horror stories with both options, just anything that you choose to do. There are risks to everything. And so knowing that like, I'm choosing these risks over these risks, and owning that, and like taking responsibility that like, it's not anybody else's fault that happened to me in the hospital. Like, I did not put the time into researching those things, into creating a birth plan, into anything really. And so can I blame everybody in the hospital and the doctors and this and that? Like, sure, but at the end of the day, they're saying that, you know, Pitocin would be the next thing. They're not forcing it. They are not injecting it into me while I'm kicking and screaming, you know. I am saying, yes, go ahead and do it. Mm-hmm. And I have to take ownership over those decisions. Mm-hmm. And so the same thing at home. You know, things can happen at home too. And taking ownership over those things of, this is what I have chosen to do, and I have to walk confidently in those decisions regardless of the outcome. And so I think that that's just the biggest thing, of just like taking ownership over your own story, that you can always blame somebody for what they have done to you, how they've wronged you, or this or that, but like taking ownership of your part and knowing that, especially in birth, like, you as the mom, you as the woman, like, you have to make these decisions and you have to have peace about it. And if you are going to feel the most peace birthing in a hospital, because that's where you are going to feel the most comfortable, like, you do it and own it. And same thing at home. Like, there are risks and there are things that can happen at home too. And knowing that, like, I'm taking ownership over that, like, regardless of whatever happens, mm-hmm. like, this is still where I feel the most peace, where I feel comfortable.
One of the most important things too, because like for this podcast, we are not just a one size fits all. It's not just like, we don't only focus on, oh, you have to do everything natural, because that isn't what's best for every single woman. But the most important thing for this podcast is that, you know, you decide your birth. You don't let people tell you what you're going to do, but instead, you know, take ownership, just like you're saying, take ownership, look into these things. And just because even if you feel more peace going to the hospital, you can still decline things at the hospital too. You can still say no if, you know, you're researching and you know. It's not just like if you go into the hospital, then everything has to be medicalized. You have to agree to everything they say. That's not how it is. It's the same for home birth too. You don't have to agree to all of the things. And I think that that's the most important thing that you can do, is to advocate for yourself, but also to, just like you said, take back your autonomy and don't let other people tell you what you're going to do, because it is not one size fits all. What's best for you might not be what's best for me. So just finding that place that you can find that peace and just feel confident in your choices, that is what birthing is about. But I'm going to shift gears just a little bit, because the one thing that you had mentioned to me is how beautiful of an experience it was that your daughters were there for your son's birth. And I just think that is so cool. And you had mentioned how, I think your oldest daughter maybe was the one that was kind of acting like a little mini doula for you and just was so supportive. Can you speak to that a little bit and tell us maybe what that was like mentally, emotionally, and just the overall experience?
Yeah, so with my second baby, because we were in the RV, my oldest daughter was only 2 and change, we decided we were not going to have her in the room. My mom had come and picked her up, so she was not part of anything. Now, because we have a bigger space, and my mom is going to be here. I like couldn't picture it without them. Regardless of whether they were sleeping or not, I knew I wanted them in the house around. And so with going into that, I had to kind of prepare my oldest. She is very smart, very well spoken, very inquisitive. And so I really had to prepare her for what it was going to look like. We watched so many birth videos. I wanted her to know that some women cry and some women moan and yell. And, I wanted her to be prepared if those things happen, for her not to be scared of them or worried or anxious about any of it, that it was all just part of the process and they were all good things.
Yeah.
We talked about placentas and umbilical cords and just all of the things. And I did not decide for her that she was going to be in the room. She decided that. She said, I want to be there. I want to see everything. She wanted to be woken up in the middle of the night if she was asleep. We had communicated all of these things, and she knew she wanted to be there. So we woke her up at like maybe 7 o'clock, like an hour and a half before he was born. And she was just amazing. She would hold my hand. She would rub my leg, just look at me lovingly. Like she was just, I don't know, just such a calming presence in the room. And my husband kind of helped her a little bit. I didn't want to like squeeze her hands too hard. So when a contraction would come, I'd kind of let go of her hand and my husband would be next to her like, it's okay. Like, she just needs a moment. And so she was never like loud at all. She was like quiet. She would whisper questions to my husband. She wouldn't even like really ask me anything. She already knew that she wanted to take photos herself. So she had her little camera that she took pictures on. And when I got into the tub, coming up and holding my hand, rubbing my arm, hugging me from behind, kissing me, just all the things that I needed in the moment that like I didn't know that I really needed her. I needed her to like love on me. And
man, this is making me a little emotional. Whew, man.
Yes, it was just honestly so beautiful. And I think, and then my second daughter woke up shortly before he was born, and that made me nervous because she's only 2.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure what to expect with her. And with my mom not being there, like I was kind of worried that Cole was now going to have to be tending to her. She just watched the whole thing. She just stood there and watched. She ate snacks and was perfectly content. And honestly, through every contraction, like looking at their faces and knowing this is what I get to look forward to. Like I know that I'm in so much pain right now and this is miserable and awful, but like seeing their faces and knowing that like there is going to be another one of these precious children, like that is the goal of all of this. It just got me through every wave, which was just amazing. And of course, when he came out and my oldest is not afraid to kiss him and touch him, even though he, has got blood on him and all this, stuff. And the minute he came out, I mean, I don't even think my placenta had come out yet. She was like, I'm going to go get the scissors to cut our kitchen scissors to cut the umbilical cord. Like she was very hands-on, ready, her and my husband, like she really wanted to cut the cord. So her and my husband, did it together.
That's
and it
awesome.
was time. And it was just so cool to see and so beautiful to like watch her kind of step into that role as a big sister and just as a support for me. Like I said, I didn't know that I needed her support, but like I couldn't have imagined my labor without her just lovingly. And then of course having just the photos and the videos of her doing all of these things is just like one of the sweetest like tangible things that I have. She's just the sweetest little soul.
That is so awesome. And I'm already just an emotional person. Just like while you're talking about that too, I just, the reason why I got so emotional is because how beautiful it is, one, to just have your daughter, both of your daughters there, but also like you are exposing them to just true motherly intuition. And obviously you showing all of that to her, she already has it instilled in her to where, she just started doing things that were beneficial and helpful, and she just understood that. And I just think it's amazing because now you're just exposing her to what birth can look like, and hopefully by the time she births babies too, whether she chooses it to do it the way that you did or not, she's going to see that there are different ways to birth. It's not just what Hollywood says, or it doesn't have to be medical. It can just be very beautiful and very instinctual, and just our intuition is truly valuable. So I love that. And so you had mentioned that you switched from being a wedding photographer to a birth photographer. Can you just speak to that a little bit too?
Yeah, I have loved photography for a long time. I picked up a camera in 2018 right after we had gotten married, just because I just thought it was the coolest thing. Like, my wedding photographer was just the coolest. I really wanted to photograph weddings. That was like my big goal, and I did it, and I got weddings and was a wedding photographer, and I traveled to different states and did all of the things, and it was so fun. But then having kids, I remember I had Sunny, our first, and for like the busy wedding season, like in the fall and winter, I was gone like every single weekend, and either traveling or local, like didn't matter. I was still gone for, all day long, even if it was local, or the whole weekend if I was traveling. And my husband, it was always my second shooter. He was always coming with me. Both of us would be gone and away, and at times it was really fun, but also I'm gone for a whole weekend, and now I have to sit and edit, for weeks on end. And so now I'm still not even like spending the time that I wanted to be. I was technically like a stay-at-home mom. I didn't work like in the corporate world anymore, but I still didn't feel like I was like home and being with her enough. After my second baby, I kind of felt a little bit of the pull to like go back and do more, and honestly just didn't really work out. I just didn't, I don't know, I did a few weddings when I was pregnant, but I just knew that like I just didn't want to do it anymore. And just the busyness, the craziness of weddings in general, I just wasn't about it anymore. So after having her at home and just like being passionate about now birth and how amazing and cool it is, we had traveled to Tennessee for a travel contract like 3 or 4 months after she was born. And so I knew I couldn't really like set up any kind of business because we were still planning on traveling, and there wasn't really any kind of way for me to build a business like that. But I knew once we had decided to stay in wherever we were going to stay, plant roots wherever, that's what I wanted to do. And so a few months later, when we decided to stay and we decided to purchase a house, I just kind of put it out there of like, if anybody's having a baby, I would love to just photograph it free of charge. I don't really care. Yeah. I just want to be in the birth space. And I just still to this day, I just love being a part of stories. It is such an honor being invited into such a sacred space, an emotional space, a tender space. Like, there's just so much that goes on, and being invited is like such a privilege. And so I don't take that lightly at all. And I love it. And it's so fun. Like, it is so much more relaxing than wedding days. Like, even though there is still like, a sense of urgency of like getting to a birth and making sure I'm there on time or whatever, it's just not chaos like it is like wedding days are. It's so beautiful to be a part of these stories, these birth stories, and getting to tell them through photographs. And also I take a lot of like videos on my phone, and so getting to share those with the mom is so cool, because those are memories that they are going to love and cherish forever, just like wedding days. Like, it is the same kind of feeling that, like, the reason why I fell in love with photographing weddings is this happens once in your life, and like I get to document it, and how cool is that? And so the same thing with birth is like, how cool that I have the honor to photograph and tell this story that is unfolding before me. And so I absolutely love it, and I love that I get to do it here and there, and I don't really advertise. I don't have like a website set up or anything. Honestly, I do it for friends and word of mouth, and that also just kind of relieves the pressure off of me too. And that's nice because I get to fully be home and maybe do a couple births here and there.
So for a mom who is listening and maybe is like on the fence with hiring somebody to come photograph their birth, or maybe hasn't even known that that's like an option, what would you say to her?
Do it 100%. I don't think you could regret it. I didn't have a photographer in my RV with, my second birth, and I had all my cameras out because my husband knows how to work all my cameras. And so I wanted him, but of course in the moment, he's not thinking about it. Neither of us are thinking about it. I didn't get a single photo. I didn't even get a video of that birth. I got nothing. I got like 2 iPhone photos that like my midwives took after when she finally came out, like, oh, let me just take a quick picture really quick. But I would say, like, yes, 100%. You want to remember, regardless of how it unfolds or how it happens, like, you want to remember those things. You want to remember your face when you see your baby for the first time, like what your reaction was, or your husband's reaction, or your kids, or whoever. Like, being a birth photographer, I'm just kind of like a fly on the wall. Like, I don't have to be involved. I don't have to be talking. I don't have to say a single word to you at all, in that space. You don't even have to really know that I'm there unless you want me to be. Like, I am more than willing to support and help however the mom wants me to be. But truly, I think, like, 100% go for it. Even if it is just a friend on their phone. Like, it doesn't have to even be a professional photographer that you spend thousands of dollars hiring. It can just be somebody who you designate as, like, please, can you just document the day for me? Because I think just having those memories to look back on is so important. And so I'm not here to tell you to spend thousands of dollars and rack it up on a credit card and all that stuff if that's not what you can afford. But just having somebody document. That's not your husband, because your husband's not going to remember in the moment.
Yes, because it's just as, like, new to them as it is you, especially, like, if it's your first too. I definitely think that if you are able to have a birth photographer or just somebody in there to snap some photos for you, or even if it's videos and then you just, like, pull photos from the video, that's still better than nothing. So, your core message to me, I feel, has just been autonomy in birth and how valuable that is. How can moms stay empowered in any birth system that might feel intimidating, and just what does informed consent truly look like to you?
Yes, I'm very passionate about informed consent and bodily autonomy, just in general, and not just in the birth space, but just in life in general, and just being knowledgeable about what you're walking into. I think information truly is power. And so if you don't know, like, you don't know what you don't know. So, you're walking into something that you don't understand or you don't know, like, that is a huge disadvantage already for you. Like, you putting your trust into somebody else, whether that is a doctor or a husband or a midwife, it does not matter. The best thing, in my opinion, that I can do for myself is just inform myself, research whatever it is that I am walking into. What is it, regardless of birth or not? And I think that is where you can make your informed decisions. It's only when you know all sides of it. And so, of course, that's hard because you can't research every single complication. There are things that are going to come up that you're like, I didn't even know that this was a thing. And I think just accepting that you did your best in that too can really just, like, help with those anxieties or those fears, or something happens where you truly are caught off guard, like, knowing that, like, there's only so much you can do too. You can't do it all. You can't research everything. You can't know it all, and just accepting. And that's why I just like taking ownership over yourself and knowing that, like, I did the best that I could do. This was the outcome, whether I liked it or not, and I can't blame anybody else for it. Like, it's on me, either because I hired that specific person to be on my team, or whatever it is. Like, at the end of the day, you got to take ownership over it, and just like surrendering to the Lord, and that no matter how much I research, how much I do, how much I like, it does not matter. Like, the Lord is the one in control over everything, and he's the only one that is writing this story.
Yep.
And so, as much ownership as I can take, also I have to say, like, God did that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I had a beautiful birth, a beautiful redemption story in both, my second and my third birth, but God did that. So, like, even though, like, yes, I did put in the work, and I did, like, at the end of the day, even if I did nothing, like, the Lord is the only one who is in control over all of it. And it doesn't matter what I do or don't do. Even in those moments of either doubt or anxiety, just taking a deep breath and knowing that, like, God is in control. And regardless of the plan that he has a plan.
Yeah, no, I love that. He is so sovereign, and, his will prevail no matter what we try to do. I mean, obviously it's still important to do what we can, but at the end of the day, he is in control. And to be honest, I think that should give a lot of people a lot more, like, peace and freedom in that you're not just confined by what you do, because at the end of the day, God's will always prevail. So I love that. And, I end every episode with one question. And so if you could speak one piece of empowering wisdom into the hearts of the mothers listening, what would that be?
Just to surrender your mind, surrender your body, surrender to the will of God, to yourself, like surrendering your anxieties, your worries, your fears, because those do not work for you. In your birth space, they do not empower you. Your fears and your worries, they are not empowering you. And so giving them up and truly surrendering them, at the door before, anything happens, like doing that before you go into labor and during labor, anytime those fears come up, I think, like, the more that you practice something, the more, like, the better you get at doing it. You have to practice something. You have to practice surrendering those fears, surrendering those anxieties. And when you do that, when you confront those things that you're feeling, when you know, like, I'm worried about this, I'm scared about this, that you can confront those head on, that when that moment comes in your birth, you know exactly what to do. You know exactly where to go in your head. You know exactly what scripture to speak over yourself, or what you need to tell yourself, what you need to ask your husband, like, please tell me that I can do this. Tell me that I'm going to be okay. And, like, what's going to work for you because you've done it 100 times before that actual moment. And so doing that, surrendering day in and day out with whatever you are feeling, those fears, those anxieties, those worries that you have, whatever it is, to find that peace, because you need that peace in birth, and you need to find that in yourself, in your headspace. You just need to go to that place, and finding how to get there and surrender all of that to the Lord, and just saying, like, here I am, Lord, like, use me and write this story exactly how you want. I would say that is really how I did it, just how I was able to find so much peace in this last birth, and just knowing that, like, this is gonna be great because the Lord's got this, and regardless of whatever happens, I know it's going to be good.
Such a good word. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for coming on Her Birth, Her Story.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Wow, what a powerful story. From trauma to trust, from fear to freedom. This birth is such a reminder of how transformative reclaiming your autonomy can be, and just how important it is to surrender to the will of God, because no matter what, His will always prevail. And I just love how she spoke to the autonomy part, because in all things, no matter how you choose to birth, you should have a say in all of your choices. It shouldn't be optional. You get to decide the things that happen to you. And her journey just shows us that healing is possible, and you are allowed to choose differently, even if that goes against the grain, and that no one gets to take ownership over your body and your birth. Thank you so much to our guest Bree for trusting us with such an empowering story. And thank you for listening to Her Birth, Her Story. Until next time, if this story really resonated with you, please share it with a mama who needs to hear it. And don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, review the show. It helps these stories reach more women. And remember, no matter where or how you give birth, this is your body, your baby, and your birth. We are reclaiming birth one story at a time.